as the Secretary-General has said, in our 80th year, work to build the more peaceful, just, and prosperous world that we know is within reach. I thank you.
我感谢英国代表的发言，下面我请美国代表发言。
Thank you, Mr. President, for organizing this meeting to review where the UN stands on its principles and purpose as we go into its 80th year. The United States helped found the United Nations after World War II to prevent future global conflicts and promote international peace and security. But UN agencies and bodies overall have drifted from their core missions. We need to take a closer look at where this institution is falling short. For example, there is a long-standing, deep anti-Israel bias within the UN that has only grown stronger since Hamas's brutal attack against Israel on October 7th, 2023. This sentiment was exemplified by the UN Relief and Works Agency, UNRWA, when staff were found to have participated in the October 7th terrorist attack. There are even recent reports that its schools and facilities have been used by Hamas. The UN Human Rights Council has protected human rights abusers by allowing them to use the organization to shield themselves from scrutiny. As for the Security Council, it is charged with maintaining international peace and security, but critical issues that demand the Council's attention continually fall by the wayside. Prior to Bashar al-Assad's departure from Syria, Russia used the Security Council to block any action to hold the Assad regime to account for its crimes against humanity. Russia's war in Ukraine is the bloodiest in Europe since the founding of the United Nations after World War II. This war needs to end. China has consistently exploited its status as a developing nation within international organizations to advance its separate agenda. The UN should not be in the business of endorsing any one country's initiatives. So, two of the greatest drivers of instability in the world today hold veto power at the Security Council. That is what we are up against. As mentioned at the outset, the United States has supported the United Nations over these 80 years. We will continue to strongly advocate for peace abroad and for security and stability at home. The United States is currently conducting a review of our support to the UN. We will consider whether the actions of the organization are serving American interests and whether it can be reformed. The United States will not support UN bodies such as the UN Human Rights Council. We will review bodies such as UNESCO, which has a history of anti-Semitism or anti-Israel sentiment within the organization. Colleagues, we are seeing the abuse of international structures for political ends, including by using the International Court of Justice advisory opinions as a way to pursue national agendas. The ICJ has been used by South Africa to accuse Israel of genocide. Unfortunately, the term genocide has been misappropriated to become an international slander. Mr. President, as we look at the tools available to us to promote economic and social development, we need to harness the power of artificial intelligence, which will have countless revolutionary applications in economic innovation, national security, healthcare, and free expression. America welcomes partnerships with UN member states that foster the creation of AI technology, but we must guard against strangling the development of AI with needless regulations. We must also be wary of attempts to use AI algorithms to rewrite history, surveil users, and censor speech. Mr. President, a few words about sanctions, or so-called illegal unilateral coercive measures. The United States reiterates that its autonomous sanctions programs are consistent with international law. In addition to observing and respecting UN sanctions, the United States and many of our partners legitimately use domestic authorities carefully regulating our domestic financial systems in a tailored way to address threats to international peace and security. In doing so, we go to tremendous lengths to avoid humanitarian impacts or impacts on the flows of life-saving food and medicine to those in need. Mr. President, in conclusion, the United States supports the UN's return to its founding mission of promoting peace and security around the world. As President Trump has stated, we will be taking a hard look over the next few months on what reforms the UN needs to undertake to get us to that point. I thank you.
感谢美国代表团的发言。下面我请斯洛文尼亚代表发言。
Thank you, Mr. President. We are encouraged by the leadership of China in organizing today's debate, and we thank Secretary General for his briefing earlier. Colleagues, soon we will mark 80 years since the end of the Second World War. Devastation and suffering caused by the war led the leaders to unite and establish the UN with the noble motivation, quote, to save succeeding generations from the scourge of war. End of quote. Our organization and hope for a peaceful future raised as a phoenix out of the ashes of the war, as beautifully depicted by Per Krog's mural for peace hanging in the chamber just behind us or above us. However, as if the core to the raison d'etre of our organization has loosened with time, and as if we are not capable anymore to imagine peace.